Hey, welcome back, everyone, here to Veteran Nation. And before we start, as always, I'm going to tell everyone go over to www.nrnplus.com/Veteran Nation. That's our landing page. You can subscribe and support to this show here. It's $79.95 for the year, or you can pay $9.95 for the month. But you're going to get access to this show, all of our archives. You also get access to all the other independent content creators that we have here at NRN. Also, I'm going to remind you that if you're on Facebook, look up our Facebook group, Veteran Nation. You can join the conversation there. I also post videos randomly during the week, do a couple fun things, and we have other people posting their streams there, other veterans and whatnot. So join the conversation on our Facebook group. And today we have very good guest. I've actually been on his show. This is his first time. Hopefully,
Are you sure you want to lead with that?
Well, hey, I enjoy your show. I enjoy all the things you talk about. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is TC. TC has his own show, Minnesota Blackrobe Regiment, and he's finally here on Veteran Nation with us.
Yeah, it's he Skipper sat in with me one time, and he spent the entire time trying to figure out how to navigate around this, but we pinned him down, and so here we are. So thanks for having me on.
No, we definitely want you on here more, especially as we do different things here at Veteran Nation. So I hope this is the first of many times that our fans are going to be seeing you.
I'm humbled at your graciousness. So we'll see where it goes. You're gonna have to put up with my hydration. I'm trying to drink more water and less things in water.
I live in the desert, so trust me, I'm constantly pounding water out here. Now you're in a totally different time zone, totally different part of the country. How are things up in your neck of the woods?
Well, fall is upon us, if that's what you're wondering. Now, it depends on what you mean by how. Other than that, how things are in my neck of the woods as the moniker of I guess my brand would tell you. I'm up in Minnesota, but I'm in the southeast corner of Minnesota, so our winters aren't quite as harsh as they are, just an hour or so north of us. I get that all the time. You don't know what real winter's like. You live in southern Minnesota. I'm like, yeah, okay, bro. So, but yeah, fall is upon us. So we're counting the days until snowblowers replace lawnmowers, and that has sometimes happened within a 12-hour period. So
you're up in the part of the country where for Halloween the kids have their winter coats on over their over their costumes.
You laugh, but it literally happens more than you think. In fact, most of the time the costumes are just designed for winter. and then you get the wrong costume, and then you'll have a 75-degree day for Halloween. So
no, I totally believe it. And I've been up to Minnesota several times. I used to go up there fishing almost for a while there. I was doing it every year. I do kind of miss that. I got to get back up there. But your show, you do a lot of different things. You're out there in the community. You're talking about things that are happening every day. I see you at the school board meetings. What do you think other veterans and people who watch the show need to know about what you do?
they should be doing what I'm doing. It's not to put any pressure on anybody right out of the gate, but if the last year and a half haven't awakened you, not woke, awakened. If you haven't been awakened in the last year and a half, I don't know what it's going to take. So just, tune into my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel. It's very, very easy to find. It's Minnesota Blackrobe Regiment, and I do some Rumble exclusive stuff, and I do some things that are exclusive to YouTube. Sometimes I run them at both. And for the sake of coverage, I'll probably be branching out to some other platforms as well with just my content, because cancel culture is real, and they don't like people who resist. And if you need to have your eyes opened, if you really think that, okay, that might happen in New York, or it might happen in California, maybe in Seattle, maybe in Portland, you are crazy because it is happening all over. And when I say it, I'm talking about the exposing of overreaching, tyrannical, wannabe tyrannical, despotic little megalomaniacs who, for lack of better terminology, have been thumbing their noses at us for quite some time because, quite frankly, we haven't been paying attention. We haven't been doing anything. And that's on us. I've been, for the last several months lately, I've been telling people, and you've heard me say this, I'm sure, if you want to be upset at somebody, be upset at yourself for what's happening with your school boards and with your city councils, because you just go out and vote for your buddy, or vote for your buddy's neighbor or your neighbor, and you don't ask questions. You don't think it matters. And so then here we sit with your school boards doing things like bringing in critical theory. And, if you're not familiar with what critical theory is, some of you might know it as critical race theory, but it's, as a whole, it's critical theory, comprehensive sex education, which is literally pornographic material being brought into your schools. And for those of you that have not heard of this and you think I'm crazy, that's fine. Go check it out, because I'm not going to tell you to go Google it, but just start looking.
Yeah.
Start looking, because you're going to find it. And worse than that is the school boards and the school districts that are literally talking about forcing their students to be vaccinated or isolating them from other students, and that those conversations are happening, and parents are waking up to this. I have a school district here in my neck of the woods, Owatonna, where they deny that critical theory, especially critical race theory, is being taught, but yet the fingerprints,
the curriculum itself is showing up.
Yeah, it's showing up in the language that's used during
They're just not calling it that.
Right. Absolutely. They talk about, we're a school that's focused on equity. And if you're not paying attention, you hear a word like that and you're like, oh, hey, yeah, equity. Well, no, you need to know what we're talking about.
It goes back to Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal.
More equal than
that
others.
Type of equity. No, that's good. And I do want our viewers to know, because you are a veteran, 82nd Airborne, correct?
Yeah, it's a couple of different units, but when I got out, I was with the 82nd unit.
Okay. And so for those of you, watching, because people are always curious and want to know, because you did a couple combat tours, correct?
No.
The
closest I got was waiting to go down to Haiti for Operation Restore Democracy. I want you to let that sink in. Restore democracy to Haiti, country that had never been a democracy.
So we both have been to places where U.S. Policy has just completely and totally failed.
Yeah, that was Germany for me, but I actually, we never actually got into Haiti. Special operations guys were all over Haiti, but we never actually got in there because the rumor has it that Raul Cedras was sitting in his presidential office when I think it was Colin Powell and might have been Carter at the time, flew down there and were escorted in and showed there again. This is a rumor. I don't know if this actually happened, but basically showed him pictures of the 82nd Airborne Division loading onto the different aircraft, waiting to go down to Haiti. And he's, well, you know who this is? This is the 82nd. When they get here, they're going to be pissed off. And all I know is that Cedras left and went into exile, and we didn't have to go in. And then I got out shortly after that. So I didn't even do that. The closest I got to being in combat was mess hall during basic training.
Now that you're out, what's been your experience with the Veterans Affairs or Department of Veterans Affairs?
My personal experience has been very minimal. I have started the process through one of the local VA offices to at a county level to been on the phone with two different ones actually, and one was more helpful than the other, but the process is incredibly slow and painful. And I do know that I have many friends and now former co-workers, um, as of recently, who are combat vets, and it's a hellish process for them, which
Mhm.
I find absolutely, it's appalling. It's disgusting at the very least. So
That's I'm just going to talk a little bit to the viewers on how we kind of came in contact. We kind of run in some of the same circles of veterans online. We've got people that we both interact with routinely, which kind of helped bring us together. And then there's also people that you personally know who I follow online who do a lot of different things like First and Second Amendment audits.
yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, that's where individuals go and just they're trying to exercise their First and Second Amendment in various places so that the rest of us are they're making sure that we are getting everything that our rights are entitled to because it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it's just going to atrophy.
Yeah, a couple of them. One in particular, I know you want to get on here, so we'll have to talk to Rowdy and
Yep, he runs the Rowdy podcast. I watched several of his videos. I think he's doing an amazing job. I think he's very respectful when he does his audits,
yep.
and I think he's doing a really important thing.
And
Um,
for those of you that have seen videos like that, the First and Second Amendment audit videos, Rowdy is not your quintessential person in that regard. He's like Skipper was saying, he's very respectful. He's very civil, and he knows his stuff.
mhm.
He is also not afraid to say no and to correct people, but he's not a sovereign citizen either. So that's a complete. They're two different, completely different animals. So if your experience on any of the video platforms is with sovereign citizens, you definitely need to check out Rowdy because he's not
I've
that guy.
been, I've been watching a lot of these audit videos, both First and Second Amendment audits, and what here's one thing that really has impressed me. There's people on every side of the political aisle, and that's one thing that really makes me feel good is that there are people out there making sure that our freedoms are being protected. Now, some of these people, you get a lot of these auditors who they do things because they don't like the police. You get others who
Yep.
want to make sure that the police are doing the right thing and that they're
Right.
telling the community the right thing. So you're seeing all different facets, and I think they're doing a really important thing for this country.
Yeah. There. You mentioned a couple of factions. There's actually probably like three.
Yeah.
There's your anti law enforcement crowd, because they're leftists. Let's just be honest. If we want to talk,
Mhm.
it's just so everyone knows. Skipper said that he doesn't bring up politics. He said I could do it. So, um, it- but there's your leftist mentality out there that police are all a bunch of
Mhm.
homophobic, misogynistic, racist pigs, if you will, and they're only out there for the power, and they'll do anything they can to provoke law enforcement, just anything at all.
Mhm.
Their initial interaction with them is just it's rude and vulgar
Yeah.
and just straight up a challenge. And then you get the sovereign citizens who I believe should have their own mental health disorder diagnosis in the DSM, in all future editions of any diagnostic manual that's coming out. And then you have guys like Rowdy who are literally vets. They're
Mhm.
out there saying, "Look, I swore an oath
Yeah.
to the Constitution."
And they tell them you swore an oath,
Right,
and I'm just making sure that you are upholding the oath and respecting my rights.
right, and I think that's where you'll see some people both that maybe are a little left of center and centrist, and people a little right of center, who who are literally out doing what they're doing, sometimes not even intentionally. So if you look at the situation that I had just this last week on Monday night in the Rochester area public schools, I don't live in Rochester, Minnesota, which if you don't know where Rochester is, think Mayo Clinic. If you haven't heard of the Mayo Clinic, then you've literally never been anywhere near a hospital. But the Mayo Clinic that's mother. They call it literally Mother Mayo, and Rochester is the third largest metro area in the state of Minnesota, and about an hour and 20 minutes roughly from Metro Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pushing to be the new Moscow in the Midwest, and their school board is running roughshod over people. And so I had some people say, "Hey, would you please come up here and give us a hand documenting how we're being treated?" Because the school board said, from this point forward, if you come into a school board meeting without a facial covering on, we're going to have you removed and more than likely trespass. Now, they said charged with trespass, but the way trespass works, you can't get charged with it when you're being told about it at the same time. Yeah. And so I went up to document, and not only did I have a school administrator put his hands all over me,
which is assault,
not according to Minnesota statutes that were quoted to me when I called to ask to press charges. But our interactions with him were much of what you would see in that accidental light, where you have an individual who is sold on the idea that they have all the power and they can shut you down. And they weren't going to let anybody in that didn't have a facial covering. And I'm going to link these two things together, and I'm going to link to officers and the constitutional thing. Think about this. Their statement is, you can come in here and say whatever you want to the school board, about the school board, about policy, about procedure, about having to wear facial coverings while you're in the building, as long as you're complying with our rules. So that First Amendment that we allegedly have is being restricted. Like, yes. It's literally being restricted. And they can
rules
say,
and policies don't trump laws.
Yeah, they're literally saying, like, you can say whatever you want as long as you follow our rules. So I can't say whatever I want. No, you can, as long as you do what we tell you to do. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, then you can't speak. So you are telling me I can't speak. No, we're telling you can't speak if you don't do what we say. People have to, like, this is why stuff like this is so important to me. And I think why you and I hit it off. And so subsequent to the interaction, the group, I was 20 plus people that were trying to come in with me. And there may, never mind, I won't even say that. But when we stepped out, two of the Rochester Police Department officers, who, by the way, I believe they were in a bad spot, and they conducted themselves very, very well and very respectfully, very politely, with very much concern for everyone's, even us rabble rousers, for our safety and our security, and really didn't want to be in a position where they had to write a trespass. And I had a conversation with them and said, look, the reason why I asked the group to step out when it was becoming clear that this administrator, who, by the way, is a former lieutenant in the Rochester Police Department, who shouldn't have known better than to put his hands all over me, and should have known better than to tread all over First Amendment. The reason, what I said to those two officers, and there again, they were phenomenal, was, we're out here so that we can have this conversation with you to tell you, look, we're watching out for you, because complying with their order to remove us could be deemed a violation of our constitutional liberties. And the Supreme Court and other courts, lower courts all the way up to the SCOTUS, have ruled that when an individual, no matter what their position, does something to violate the civil or constitutional rights of an individual or a group of individuals, no matter for what reason, the veil of their immunity is pierced.
Yep.
And what that means is that once you tread on somebody's constitutional liberties,
Yep.
in the capacity of your work, you're no longer indemnified from being sued personally. That's
there was just a case out of Wisconsin, right near you, of a sheriff department who sent a sheriff's deputy to tell a person to take down their COVID posts under threat of arrest, and it went through the courts, and that deputy who showed up lost his qualified immunity. That means that deputy can be sued specifically for those actions. Most police, they have qualified immunity, which means whatever they do, the department can be sued, but they personally can't be sued. And when they're violating your constitutional rights in such a blatant manner, they lose that and they can be absolutely sued.
And they don't get to say, well, I was just following the orders that were given to me. And if they could track that back to the order giver loses their qualified immunity. The veil of their immunity is pierced. And that's why I'm having these conversations with people. I don't want to do that. I don't want to.
People don't like it, but it's a nerve, and touching that nerve is eventually going to desensitize it. So I think you're doing a great thing.
Well, thanks. That was a really nice show. Thanks. Have a good night.
No, if you don't mind, though, I do want to get into some things that are a little bit less heavy, though, because
that was fun for me. I don't know why you call that heavy. That's my bread and butter.
I know it's what you do. I want everyone to know what you do. You're a fun guy. I really enjoy our back and forths on social media when we text, all that stuff. And I really think we have to pull back the veil and give people a little bit of insight into some of the things that we talk about and that us as veterans talk about. So I pulled down some questions. They came from a subreddit called Ask Military, and we're going to go through them. You ready?
I just want to preface this with anything that I say in initial response to any of these questions is neither planned nor can I be held responsible for answering stupid questions with stupid ansers.
And I prefer stupid answers because then it's completely off the cuff.
So here's what I'll do. If they're bad enough, I'll give you the stupid answer, and then I'll give you the straight answer.
Well, you might help me from not looking like the moron out here, or at least the only one. So this first question, I know a lot of preppers out there would love to answer this one. It's, where should we go if there's an invasion?
Oh, I don't know if there's not just a straight answer to that question, because it's really something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and a lot of people have asserted there's a reason we're not going to be invaded, and that's the Second Amendment.
I believe you're right on that, but I think it's also good to prepare.
Right. I think the better. Let me rephrase the question for the questioner and put it into a scope that's ultimately real. Where are you going to go when they come for you? And I think that's probably in the realm of reality, far more readily available to us in the future than an actual invasion. And I think that if you're in an urban area, you're screwed. If you were one of those people who is going to resist that kind of whether it's an invasion or some sort of just
martial
law or whatever it is, if you're the kind of person who's thinking about that and is thinking about where am I going to go, the best thing for you to do now is figure out where you are. And if that where you are is within a 10-mile radius of a major metro area, you need to get out of that area, period. I don't care what kind of sacrifices you're talking about from my perspective. And then you need to be in an area that isn't necessarily in the middle of nowhere. I'm not one of those that, I'm going to sell everything and go buy 5 acres of land in the middle of, like we live in bluff country where we're at, and I'm going to go buy 5 acres of land in the middle of bluff country and I'm going to live off grid. Like, enjoy your comforts while you have them, okay? But you know, for lack of better terminology, you should have a bug out bag. You should be ready to go. You should know how to survive off the wilderness. And I was raised in a hunting family. I don't do a lot of it anymore. It's been quite a while, but I still know what to do and I know what to look for. And I know how to take care of myself and my family if it comes down to it. But that's what a lot of people that I've run into, quite frankly, in that even in the prepping community, who have no idea. They think prepping is packing up a bunch of dried food and canning all their own stuff and stockpiling things on shelves so that you see these videos on different platforms of people with just aisle after aisle after aisle in their garage of nothing but canned goods and dry goods and buckets of prep food. And I'm like, you're just a target when you have all that stuff.
One thing that I think is it maybe not so much an invasion or any type of attack. That one thing I think is very likely is an EMP. EMPs can happen accidentally, and if you're stockpiling a lot of electronic equipment and ham radios, those are going to be, if you don't have them protected against EMP stuff, those are going to be just junk. If one of those were to occur, and I mean, you're going to lose power. You'll still have running water, most likely, if you are in an area where it's fed by pressure, which most are. But I think knowing your terrain of where you're at, I'm out here in the desert. If it were any type of invasion or attack, I've got some pretty good fields of fire. So anyone coming, I'm going to see them coming from a mile away and be ready. But also being able to have access to water, to food, hunting.
Yep.
If you're in a fertile area, being able to grow stuff, and also being able to get to high ground. We talk about the government coming for martial law. Ruby Ridge, they were ready for the government, and just a couple people were able to fend off hundreds of law enforcement, and only by negotiation did they actually come out. So,
and then won the court case too. So
yeah, and were completely justified in the stuff they were doing and had their constitutional rights violated. Okay, the next question. Why disarm an IED instead of just throwing a grenade at it?
Because 2 explosions are always better than 1, I guess. I guess we have to be understanding that people don't. One, the use of a high explosive anti-personnel hand grenade is a guessing game at best. I mean, it's a guessing game. You have to have pinpoint accuracy to take out an IED. 2, you don't know what's going to trigger the IED. 3,
you might be in the casualty radius. If you're throwing a
close
grenade,
enough to throw a grenade, yeah, you're absolutely probably in the like, unless you happen to have an 80, a 40 millimeter grenade launcher mounted to a vehicle where you can get out there a ways. The chances that you're going to chuck a grenade that far to where you
just set me up for a story. Everyone knows I've talked about on the show. I was in Afghanistan. I was actually in when Marja was in. I was down there in that area of the country, and we got a sit rep that came through one night where it was the Afghan National Forces and the Afghan police both kind of they were both doing patrols, came across this IED, what was a suspected VBID, so vehicle IED, and the two groups had a discussion. Well, the police had an RPG and they wanted to just blow up the vehicle, whereas the Afghan National Army and the Marines that were with them were telling them, no, let's call EOD to come out here. Well, as they were discussing it, the policeman had the RPG and was already aimed in and was not using proper trigger control. But he was looking off to the side at his leaders as they were discussing what should be done. And in that had a negligent discharge of the RPG, which missed the vehicle and hit a nearby tree. But what was funny about it is there was actually a trigger man hidden up in the tree. So the tree fell down onto the vehicle. The trigger man fell onto the vehicle and inadvertently blew himself up. So, yeah, it's just not you don't want to introduce more variables. Just get IED. Those guys are the professionals. They know how to take that stuff out. You could already be in the casualty radius as we talked about, and also you don't know. Maybe there's secondary explosions and stuff like that, and IED is going to recognize that when they start looking at it.
I was just going to point out too that for everybody who says that the United States law enforcement community is overly militarized, you will not see a single one of them walking around just randomly with an RPG. Okay, so you can say what you want about the militarization of American law enforcement. They ain't carrying RPGs like as a normal course of action. I want you to just let that sink in.
Yeah, that's a big cultural difference from us to the Afghans.
I bet you show your ID when the guy with the RPG says papers, please. So
here's the next question. Is there any animosity between combat and non-combat veterans?
I have never run into it. Never.
I have not run into
there's some justified animosity between the Marines and the rest of the actual military. But
I'll tell you this: I have combat, non-combat. As far as veterans go, I've never run into it. I have run into it in the military, where we had people who hadn't been to combat and people who were, and there was like, tension and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
But here's one thing I'll say: in the military, we tend to get PTSD, which is a mental illness. We tend to become veterans with our mental illnesses. So there's a higher rate of mental illness with veterans. I would not be surprised if it does happen out there. Actually, in fact, I don't virtually guarantee it. And I would just say it's a product of mental illness, people who have this need to say, I did something better, or you didn't serve the way I served, so that doesn't make us the same. It's BS. So for those saying it, it's just probably because they're dealing with an emotional issue.
I tell people all the time, they're like, thank you for your service. I'm like, please don't. I mean, and we've talked about this a little bit in different places. Like your average Joe in the military isn't walking around with a hero chip on his shoulder, waiting for everybody to laud him as a hero. And we don't want to be, because some of us have actually either in the military or in other career fields outside of the military, we've actually worked alongside heroes.
Yeah.
Or seen people do things, heroic things in situations. And so when we, we have a local Midwest grocery store chain. It's a very, very good chain, but they started putting hero parking at the front of their store, which actually is closer to the store than the handicap parking, which is actually separated from the hero parking by electrical vehicle charging stations, by the way.
We've got maternity parking out here as well.
No, we do have that in a few places, but the vast majority of the vets out there, and even the ones that have done something heroic, don't want to be seen that way. They really don't want that applause. And it's one thing to quietly thank them. It's another thing to tell them that they're a hero. And it's really been bastardized over the last year and a half, where every single person that you ran into was a hero for working during the COOF. And for those who don't know me, when I say COOF, I'm referring to COVID-19. I say COOF on my channels away from here because it beats the algorithm. But I mean, just think about that. The gum chewing snot at the grocery store who doesn't even know how to say hello when you walk up is being labeled a hero for working in a grocery store. Now, then you go and you look at a firefighter or a cop or an EMT or a soldier or a vet, and you say, oh, look, heroes. And they're like, compared to that, no, I don't want to be a hero.
As we're seeing with nurses, yesterday's heroes can be today's hey, get out of here. You're not vaccinated. You're fired. Go home.
Mm-hmm.
what I always tell people, you don't need to thank me if you want to do something. Buy me a beer or show me your boobs.
I don't want to buy you a beer, and I really don't think anybody wants to see my boobs. So
um, and
this will be the last time I'm ever on.
Oh, they're gonna kick me off this when they see that part. So for the last question, when people say the military is for dumb people with no other alternatives, do you get upset?
No, I just ask them why they haven't joined yet.
That's here's what I'll tell people. Here's what I tell people.
I'm sorry, but I mean, if that's you're gonna say something that asinine, that's the response you deserve.
Well, actually, you know, that's an old what I'll say stereotype of the military. It actually comes from the draft days because back during the draft, you could get educational waivers, and people would get drafted and would have to serve. And they used to say that you were if you were not smart enough to get out of the draft, it was because you were dumb. That's why that exists.
Yeah.
But we have not had an active draft since 1979. The reason I added this question is because I did want to talk about that. Right now, the draft is actually a case of some lawsuits about now that female veterans or females can serve in any role in the military. The question is being taken to the courts of should women be forced to join the selective service?
Boy, there's why do
There's
you
a
do
lot
this?
to that. Yeah.
No, yeah. Well, there is and there isn't. One, okay, I'm gonna play your game out with not you. I'm gonna play your game with you, Mr. or Mrs. Everybody it has should have exactly the same pay and exactly the same job availability and whatnot. All right, fine. You teach this to your kids at home. Then when your little Missy turns 18, she should be forced to register for the draft. Period. And not only that, the standards that she needs to meet to be in the military should be made exactly the same as they are for men. Period. End of discussion. Because if my butt's got to go into a foxhole with somebody, that person better be able to carry my wounded ass out.
There's no pay
because
gap
the
in the
enemy's not
military
going to say, hey, hold on a second. Here, let us help you carry him because your PT standards were lower. They're going to kill us both.
Mhm.
And that's the brutal reality of it. Fair is fair. If this is the society you want to talk about equity, there you go. There's your equity for you. Everybody gets forced onto the registry. Period.
There's no pay gap in the military because everybody's paid so little.
Precisely. But the other part of that is coming at it from the perspective that I come at it from. First of all, I don't think there should be a selective service.
Yeah.
First of all, the United States, the founders of the United States never intended for there to be a standing army, period. End of story. And I know the military, boy, when the military people get a hold of me saying that, but constitutionally, we were never supposed to have a standing military. That was never the intent.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to have the ability to defend ourselves. And from a tyrannical government and from threats, both foreign and domestic, to our Constitution, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that was supposed to be we the people. And that, quite frankly, is one of the reasons why it took to English until 1812 to try and come back in.
Yeah.
And they got their butts handed to them after some skirmishes.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Battle of New Orleans. But the other aspect of this, outside of the standing military question, is I have nothing but respect for the fairer sex, and we need to understand that. I don't care if you're Christian or atheist. We are different. We're built different, and sure, there are some women out there who could bench press both of us combined, and are probably far better shape than you and I are in. But the exception does not prove. The exception proves the rule. That for the most part, men are geared towards combat. They're geared towards a combat mindset. It's why when you're walking down the street and somebody comes running out of somewhere, the guy very often will interpose himself between his significant other or his daughter or whatever, in a way that he would never do with his buddies.
There's a mentality,
and 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 the military is replete with stories
Actually,
of
for
that
me,
playing out.
you hit on the comedian D.L. Hewley. I listened to him one time on a podcast, and he was talking. He was like, I can always pick out the men who were raised by fathers, by those that weren't. He goes, they stand out differently today because we have so many um, young men today who were raised in single mothers' homes. But you can always pick out those who were raised with a father because there's just a little bit of a difference in the way they act and carry themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're going to move off of that, and then we're actually going to move into a bit. And this one's a lightning round. This one's hopefully going to be some fun. So feel free. These are all, I wrote pitches of TV and movie shows. So what I'm going to do
How
is
far into the pitch can I stop you?
whenever you want to, you can say, yeah, no, pass. You can say, pick it up. You could be like, you can ask me, be like, are you stupid? But we're just going to have fun with this. These are just things that I was trying to think of, like, what crappy shows could Hollywood put on TV? Because it's like they're in a contest to see what the worst show or worst movie is they can do. So this is, if I were in charge of the networks, these are the things I'd be doing.
You know who you need to do this with?
Who's that?
I mean, I'll do this with you, but you know who you need to do this with? Brandon from Indy's Coffee. He was a Hollywood bigwig.
He's been on the show. You know what?
How did I miss that?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if he'll want to come on and do it with me. I'll write some more, but I'm gonna go through these, and I just want to know if it's something that you think we should, something you think that you would watch, or if you think it's crap.
Trash it or pick it up.
Yep. And I've got 30 seconds elevator pitch. Okay. All right, here we go.
Per idea or total?
No, per idea.
Oh.
I'll try to keep it as quick as possible. These are all very short, so I think I'll be quicker than 30 seconds in most of them. Okay. James Marston has lost his Wall Street job and moves home to help his mom's Southern bed and breakfast. He's not ready for the down-home quirkiness. Dolly Parton plays his mom. David Ketchner plays his feuding neighbor. Hayden Panettiere is his love interest. It's called Country Inn.
Actually, I think you picked that one up. You picked that one up.
You like that?
Okay. Oh yeah, that one will go somewhere. I mean, you got to make sure with our culture today that you're writing in the right characters, but that's what the producers and the writers are for. But yeah, that one might go somewhere. My wife would probably watch that one.
These are all from up here. So
my wife would probably watch that one.
So Lauren German, that's the girl from Lucifer, is a U.S. attorney trying to take down the mafia, but meets her match in a witness protection couple of Michael Madsen and his wife, Marissa Tomei, and neither can stay out of trouble. It's called Capiche?
No.
Just no?
Just no. No. Have you seen Marissa Tomei lately? I mean, no. We've come a long way since My Cousin Vinny.
Well, I thought she could be the role, but you're saying no. Okay, we'll move on to the next one.
Hey, you asked. Brandon might think different, so
we'll see. So, okay, this one, Russell, played by Jim Parsons, aka Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, is about to be.
No. any mention, but anyway, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and read the rest just for the audience. He's about to be broke and homeless until he befriends Craig, played by Hugh Laurie, a con man who uses his British charm to get by and agrees to teach the polite Russell. It's called Confidence Men.
As long as there's no throw-in jokes to Big Bang Theory, I think you might be able to make a go of that. No,
totally different vein. It's more in going back to the comedies that Hugh Laurie did in the UK.
Yeah, I think you could probably make that one work.
Okay, here we go. Disaster movie with an ensemble cast about a wildfire that surrounds an upscale winery and one man who tried to warn them. It stars Ryan Reynolds, Margot Robbie, Kurt Russell, Sigourney Weaver, James Caan, Gerard Butler, Conan O'Brien, and Kevin Hart. It's called Combustible.
I think you have your answer there in the background. Was that your dog?
Yeah, that's my service dog. She
Yeah,
wants to get in on the
yeah, your dog said it all. You're doing good until you threw Conan O'Brien in there, and I'm like,
There's got to be some comedic relief.
could you have picked somebody with some experience at comedy?
He needs a job. He's off TV now. Okay, here we go on to the next one. Matthew Perry is a TV chef who has a meltdown on air that gets his show canceled, but B-list movie diva Heather, played by Jayma Mays, sees a way for both to cash in and reignite their careers by pretending to be a couple. It's called Simmer Till Serve.
You got it. You got it. Please tell me that we're getting closer to the cream. See what I did there? Got it.
I'm going to let the animals in here. They might try to jump on camera.
The people will prefer that.
Okay, this one is called Holla Back. It's Kevin Hart. He's a suave ladies man who cares only about money until he meets his match in Cora, played by Beyonce, a streetwise tough girl who turns his whole world upside down.
See, you were doing really good until you brought Beyonce into it. Like, we'll give it a shot. We'll give it a pilot.
It needs some star power.
We'll give it
Kevin Hart, he's good, but you need some star power in there.
Yeah, we'll give it a pilot. Maybe we can promote it pretty heavy on, like Hulu or something. I mean,
so this next one I really like. It's called Action News Team 7. It's an office-like docu-comedy set in the TV station in Bismarck, North Dakota. It stars Jamie Presley, Chris O'Dowd, both as love interest rival anchors. David Hyde Pierce is the station manager. Terry Crews is the sports guy. It's Parks and Rec meets Anchorman meets Cheers.
So while I'm not a big fan of The Office, either version, I think this would probably be a go. When you put David Hyde Pierce and Terry Crews in a crew together, I think you got some magic there.
There's some really funny guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You got some magic there.
Okay, this is a Netflix series idea. It's called High and Mighty. Kelsey Grammer is a sex-addicted florist who loses his wife and almost loses his business, but discovers he's great at growing a flower that produces a new drug. His addictions may sink him before it's all up.
I like that, but it's just because I like Kelsey Grammer. So,
well, that's all my pitches. So, how do you think I did? Do you think Hollywood's ready for me?
Did you write down what my answers were to every one of those?
No, but I know what they are.
That should tell you. I think maybe you should leave pitching Hollywood things up to Brandon over at Indies. And I mean, you got it. I give you. You think a lot more than I give you credit for. So
this brain is always working.
There again, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if we're using words in the same context when you say working.
Am I doing at least a better job than Hollywood? Are those ideas better than what's currently?
Can you raise the bar a little? A better job than Hollywood, right? This is the group of people that gave us Friday the 13th. Still. Predator versus Alien.
I'm doing this because there's no ideas coming out of Hollywood. So I'm coming up with new and original ideas.
There's no new ideas. You can't. I mean, the last two good ideas are on their way out, and that was one of them's gone. I don't know if you saw Superstore ever, but Superstore was freaking hilarious. I love that show.
And they were not a tour of that set.
Huh?
I've been on the set. I got a tour of it.
That show was hilarious because you could see it happening. It was your Walmart. Sorry, it was just every Walmart you've ever been in. And even though they had a lot of political messages that I didn't agree with, I love that show. Mm-hmm. And then Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. That show was, I mean, it's on its way out, but it phenomenal. Pretty much it for original ideas. That's like told my kid today. We were coming back from the Lowe's, and I said, somebody, we went, there's food, because food trucks are like a thing everywhere now. Like it used to only be in California, maybe New York. Now they're like everywhere. And we drove by a food truck on a Sunday in the tiny little town of Stewartville. And I said, somebody needs to come up with a keto food truck. And he said, no, it's not going to happen. And then I'm like, yeah, because most people eating at food trucks probably don't care about how much weight they're gaining. So
depends. If you did it in California, you'd probably be successful in certain areas.
Right. Any place where the vegans weren't.
Well, we're getting close to our time now. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Well, that's it. I was having so much fun. I was hoping this would go on for another hour and a half.
We got to end at some point. Always keep them wanting more.
Yeah, well, we're in trouble. So, anything I want to plug? Gosh, I don't.
I'll tell the fans, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at VetNation NRN. I'm on there talking all the time. You can also come to our Facebook group, which is just search Veteran Nation. It's the only group named that. Join us. I do fun things on there.
He does. He has some he says some interesting things on Twitter. That's for sure. No, you can certainly check me out on Twitter. I'm not as active on there as I'd like to be. I need to get more active because it's growing and they don't tend to crash as hard.
True.
At Blackrobe Regiment, or just look it up under Minnesota Blackrobe Regiment. You can find me on Facebook at TC Pearson. I also have a Minnesota Blackrobe Regiment page there, YouTube and Rumble, Minnesota Blackrobe Regiment. My website's awesome. MinnesotaBlackrobeRegiment.com. I've got coffee coming out. Nice. Brandon and Carla made 3 separate blends, and we picked our first blend. We're going to call it, what did I decide to call it? Oh, that's horrible. You'd think I'd remember. Oh, the Muhlenberg roast.
Okay.
It's named after a famous preacher who, when he got down out of the pulpit, he dropped his black robes and he was wearing the robes of a colonial infantry officer, and he led the entirety of the male population of his congregation out to join the Continental Army. And so I decided I was going to name it in honor of him. So I'm going to write up a little tiny history blurb for Brandon to put on the back of the packages. We're going to start selling coffee.
Awesome.
Mostly because if you haven't followed me at all, there's a series on there about how I have recently parted ways with my employer of the last almost 13 years because, and this is why things like the First Amendment are so important, ladies and gentlemen, they came after me for my YouTube content and my commentary.
Which is not bad content at all. You did nothing wrong.
Yeah, like thanks. I appreciate that, Skipper, because people are like, well, what kind of monster are you? And I'm like, well, I'm this kind of monster, obviously. But it was literally a case of what we were talking about in the beginning of elected and appointed public servants circling the wagons and doubling down to protect each other in the face of accountability.
Yep.
And so if you're interested, I'll send you the link, Skipper. If anybody's interested, I'll send
post it in the Facebook group, and yeah, we'll make sure we tweet it out.
I'll send it. I'll send the link to the playlist where we talk about it, just so people. Yeah, I say some things that are pretty heated. I don't always represent what I say. I believe spiritually on a perfect
we love
basis.
You here. We do want to have you back. I hope this is the first of many appearances that you have on here.
Well, I've got time.
Well, we're going to wrap up the show now. And I do want everyone out there to, check us out in all the places that we've said, Twitter, Facebook, the NRNplus.com/Veteran Nation. Do all that. And for those of you out there, thank you for being worth serving.